And what's up, fellas, ladies, gentlemen, children of all ages? It's the most hyped up I've ever been on a Tuesday morning in the Barstool office, coming to you not live. It's Wake Up Mintzy off the literally most fun Ole Miss weekend I've ever had, which is saying something after going there for like 25 years. We're fired up to be here. It's a great day to be alive. And we're going to be joined, Tyler Moody, as always, from Louisiana. I'm pounding my Stella Blue, positive vibes only. Got some at Stan's Donuts. Make sure you get that. Only way to start your day. Support Big Cat, drink some Stella Blue. We got dude wipes to clean up all of our messes. But the plan is to not have any messes today because it's a just joyous occasion. And we're going to be joined by Walker Jones here of the Grove Collective from Ole Miss. What's up, Walker? Good morning. How we doing?
Good morning, Mintzy. Good to see you again, buddy. What a great weekend.
Hell yeah. I think that doesn't even begin to describe it. I mean, I've been coming up there for like 25 years now, and that was the number one most fun weekend I've ever had in Ole Miss in Oxford, Mississippi. Even better than 2014 Bama, which was obviously a huge win over a number one team. I think there's a lot to get into, but as fun as that win was, that one was in early October. This one was in November with everything in front with the 12-team playoffs. And, man, so much to get into with it. First of all, just introducing everyone to Walker. He's the head of the Grove Collective NIL. Ole Miss has been at the front of the NIL era with the transfer portal and this new generation and raising money and everything and helping build the roster. And just for you personally, with the amount of work you've put in the last couple of years, I know you have a great team with you. You work hand-in-hand with Lane. How gratifying was that Ole Miss-Georgia game?
Well, look, I think it was a culmination of a lot of hard work that we had put in. I think we've said it's been, pretty consistently reported that, we saw where we were last year against Georgia and what we were as a team and what we were not as a team. And I think we made a concerted and intentional effort to build a team that could play in a game like that and compete and hold up against a roster like Georgia. So, it was literally almost a year to the day later that we lined up against those guys again, and to come to fruition, the talent and the roster and the way we constructed that team to be able to compete in a game like that. And, life's all about proof of concept. You always you have a plan, you have a vision, you think you're doing things right, but until you see it manifest itself in reality on national TV against a team that hadn't lost a game to somebody other than Alabama, I think, in 50 some odd times. I think it was a great day, and it was a great affirmation for us that we're on the right track and our thoughts were correct. Our goal was correct. But we still got a lot of football left to play, and that win got us back into the mix of things. And Saturday night, just thinking about all the hard work that went into that, and finally seeing that affirmation on the field was really satisfying.
And okay, so what Walker's talking about. So last year I went to and I saw y'all. We had a tailgate in Athens for Ole Miss, Georgia. Ole Miss went into Athens the same exact weekend last year with one loss and got just blown off the ball completely. 52-17, just got wiped out at the line of scrimmage. And the next day, you and Lane met and were like, hey, if we're going to compete with Georgia and Bama, we got to get bigger at the line of scrimmage. You go out. You get Princely off the edge from Florida, who has 9.5 sacks now. You get Pooh Paul, just stud linebacker, Walter Nolan, first-round defensive tackle. You beef up the offensive line. I mean, spent a bunch of money, got all these guys literally designed off what happened in that Georgia game because Lane had coached up Ole Miss. They'd won 10 games 2 out of 3 years, but they just weren't quite at that level at the line of scrimmage. And that was literally the goal of this offseason. And then you fast forward a year later, you hold Georgia to 10 points, like 240 or 250 total yards. I mean, you mentioned the proof of concept. I believe Ole Miss had like 9 sacks in this game. I don't see how you could write a better script than what happened in Athens a year ago, the meeting, and then just seeing it all play out.
Well, yeah, I mean, look, the one thing that Georgia has provided the blueprint for a lot of us, to be honest with you, Georgia's been dominant for the last, 5-6 years. And, the blueprint was, big, long, athletic bodies up front, not just size, but athleticism. And, and then obviously all the other pieces that they had. And that's kind of what we looked at. And, we've talked about a lot, Mintzy, is, you really look at this thing in 3 buckets. You look at what your current roster looks like and who you want to retain. You look at, the transfer portal, who you want to go get, and the holes you need to fill, and then you look at the high school recruiting piece of it, and all three of them serve a purpose. And the great thing for us is, after that Peach Bowl, we knew that we had a great core nucleus to build around, and it was really easy for us to determine, okay, what were those liabilities and those holes we needed to fix in the portal and with high school recruiting, and we went out and made a intentional effort to do that. But yeah, we try to follow that blueprint that Kirby put together at Georgia with those long athletic bodies. And if you look at that game Saturday, controlling the line of scrimmage, we gave them a short field for their first touchdown on that first drive. But after that, we really made them work for every yard. We defended every blade of grass. We made them work. We took away the run game, which helped. We forced turnovers. We got after the quarterback, made him uncomfortable. And those are the things you got to do to win a game like that. So, really excited. And as we looked at that defense this year, that's what we expected it to look like, on Saturday.
Well, okay, so going back through this game, I'm going to recap it a little bit. So, beginning of the game, first of all, you mentioned it. Ole Miss, could not have had a worse start. Dart threw a pick on a 3rd and 15 and gets hurt. Georgia scores on 4th and goal from the 2. It's 7-0, and your starting quarterback's out. And Ole Miss puts Austin Simmons in, the freshman, who's looked great spinning the ball. Just the way the ball comes out of his hand, it's just, I don't know, it's incredible. And that kid comes in there, I don't want to call him a kid, that young man, comes in there in the toughest spot in the rain against one of the top 3 to 5 defenses in the country and just leads Ole Miss on this touchdown drive. It's a 4th and 1 slant to Caden Lee. And, I think there's so much to get into in this game, but that was like the key turning point because the energy with the rain and Georgia getting up 7-0 and Dart getting hit, it was uneasy. And just to go run down there and get that touchdown drive, I thought was just Austin Simmons is one of the MVPs of this game.
Well, yeah, Mintzy, when it starts like that, you kind of get into the creep in your mind, like, here we go again. Are we just a pretender? And obviously our players didn't feel that way. Jackson actually got hurt the play before when he got sacked. Stayed out there on that 3rd down. You could tell he was throwing off his back foot because he had hurt himself the play before. But to your point about Austin Simmons, we've seen that in practice all year, and we knew that was the type of young man we were getting last year. Obviously, a two-sport athlete here at Ole Miss, great pitcher for our baseball team, great young man, big frame, has a tremendous arm talent, and I would love to sit here and say that I wasn't surprised to see that because we know what kind of kid he is. But, man, what a tough situation to be put in there in the rain, down 7-0, a turnover early. I think he converted a 4th and 1. And
he did. It was a slant to Caden Lee.
Yeah, so he converted on a big 4th down. He converted on a big 3rd down as well right after that. Got us in the end zone. And I think that stabilized us. That if that drive had gone differently, things could have gone downhill. But that stabilized us. It gave Jackson some time to get ready to go, and which was huge to be able to have Jackson come back. But that's the thing that you want to look for with these rosters now as we construct these rosters is next man up. I know it's a cliche, and everybody says, "Oh, it's next man up. The next guy's got to go," but that's so hard to be able to actually do. But it was really refreshing to see that, and again, I'd hope that's what we would get out of Austin, but until you see it out there, you don't really know.
Yeah, so Austin Simmons leads that drive, and then the whole rest of the first half, shout out Caden Davis, the kicking was unbelievable. It was in the rain. Mm-hmm. He bombs a 53-yarder, I believe like a 48-yarder, and then a short one, and Ole Miss is up 16-7 at the half. And then I was saying at halftime, I was like, the key to the whole game is the first drive of the 3rd quarter because Georgia's going to come out the half, and if they go down and score at 16-14, it's like a coin flip game. That was the one drive they actually went down the field the whole game, and Ole Miss was able to stop them on the 5-yard line. And I thought momentum-wise, holding them to 3 there was just so massive because you knew there was going to be some kind of a Georgia effort. And cut it to 16-10, and then after that, that was it. They couldn't move the ball. Georgia had no vertical passing game whatsoever because Ole Miss's pass rush was so ferocious they couldn't even have their receivers run 20 yards down the field. Princely off the edge, he was second-team All-SEC at Florida last year. He's got 9.5 sacks now. Jared Ivey, complete warrior. He has 8. He tipped the ball on the interception. He got a sack. And then Perkins, the sophomore, has 10 sacks. You got 3 of the top 4 sack guys now in college football, with those three guys, and those guys are just holy terrors off the edge. And they say that in the NFL all the time. Those edge rushers are the closers. That's how you finish football games. And able to force three turnovers, a strip, a pick. Frazier, the running back, fumbling. I mean, it was. Look, I know Ole Miss had a really dominant defense in 14 with the Land Sharks, but I thought that was the most dominant defensive effort considering the competition I've ever seen by Ole Miss.
Well, and don't forget Xavier Harris too. Xavier
Monster.
Harris and he's a big frame. He made a great play on that screen pass to force the fumble on the running back that Walter Nolan ultimately recovered. And so you're getting production from everybody, and they're all out there for a reason. They're somewhat different complementary players. I think the complementary nature of that front is great with speed guys with Perkins and Princely. You've got power guys with Xavier, with J.J. Pegues, with Xavier Harris. You've got Walter, who's just an absolute bully. But then, and again, being a former linebacker, I always watch the linebackers play. I mean, Poopaw and TJ, those guys are perfect for that defense because, we keep them clean because of that front. The front keeps those linemen off those guys, and they're athletic enough to run and play in space. As a former linebacker, I always take a lot of pride in watching our linebackers play, and I thought those two kids, played great as well. And, against Georgia, they're just, they're so good at bullying you in the run game, staying ahead of the sticks, being opportunistic down the field with some athletic guys, and we kept them behind the sticks, which changes everything. And look, we're going to have to do that. I mean, you talked about Caden Davis, and we get into these last two ball games and then hopefully a playoff run. You're going to have to win rock fights. You're going to have to win tough games, and people are going to shorten the game. They're going to try to keep the ball away from our offense now that our offense is really hitting its stride. So you're going to have to be able to, hold people, make them drive the whole length of the field. You're going to have to make field goals, when touchdowns aren't going to be at a premium, or touchdowns are at a premium. So, I think, again, that was a great barometer for us to pass when we had failed kind of against Kentucky. And then the LSU game, when you're literally 2 plays away from being undefeated, you keep talking about that. But until you actually win one of those games, you got to be able to do that to believe it. And I think our guys did that. And I think it's going to serve us well for whatever comes, down the road here.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, I'll talk about Jackson for a second. Hurts his ankle. As you mentioned on that second play, I was like screaming run a draw on 3rd and 15 in the stands on that 3rd and 15, just a punt because the way that was going. But he comes back in with a hurt ankle. And the thing about him, his toughness is unbelievable. He's got a hurt ankle. He had 2 25-yard runs in this game. He still ran. His leadership, his toughness are elite. And then, you talk about the next man up thing. Trey Harris is leading the country in receiving. He's been banged up the last month. And then you see the emergence of Jordan Watkins, who was great last year too, but he's turned into a stud number one. Juice Wells, the South Carolina transfer, made a huge touchdown catch. And then at the running back spot, Henry Parrish out. You see Bentley with a touchdown. Also him catching the ball over the middle. The depth of the roster really, really showed.
Well, and look, I think Lane said this in his press conference yesterday, the day before, actually, and I'd said it last week too, talking to some people, is you never want to have a player not available like Trey Harris, number one. I mean, he's a difference maker. You always want him available. But there's a little bit of a silver lining in that too for us, is that we were going to have to find production from other places. And I think our offense early in the year was really dependent on getting the ball to Trey as much as possible, and it probably diminished the impact that Jordan Watkins and Juice Wells and Daquan Wright and Caden Prieskorn and those other guys could have, because we were just so dependent on getting the ball to a great playmaker like Trey, which is what he is. So him not being available actually was a great opportunity for us to spread the ball around, find production other places, to make our play calling more creative. And I think Charlie Weiss and Lane did a great job of, using the lack of availability of Trey as a positive to get the rest of our pieces going, like you just said, Mintzy. And it was really great to be able to see. I mean, when I saw Trey on Thursday and I knew he was probably going to be doubtful and he didn't look great at practice, I didn't, and neither did anybody else. Like, I didn't have this sense of dread. I'm like, you know what? We're going to be okay. I think our offense will continue to produce. And we're going to have to do that down the road because people are going to take Trey away from us because he's just that dynamic. So again, I think to your point, having those other guys step up, having an opportunity to have to spread the ball around with not having Trey available, I think was a good thing for us. And Jackson did a great job. I mean, look, I knew last year when he played in that Egg Bowl after the beating he took against Georgia, he went out in that Egg Bowl in a really tough, gritty game and was running guys over, taking big hits, getting up. And I knew right then that we had a dog in our quarterback. And, that's what he is. I wasn't really worried that he wouldn't come back, but you just never really know when you have an ankle injury like that. But, yeah, look, it was really great to see all those guys step up. And, that's why we went and got a Juice Wells. That's why we went and got that kid. That's why we went and got Daquan Wright, the tight end for Virginia Tech, to give us another option at the tight end position. And those guys are starting to show why we brought them in here.
I also want to mention the biggest concern going into this game was the Ole Miss offensive line versus the Georgia defensive front, especially after what Georgia did to Texas. Thought the offensive line effort was spectacular in this game for what you could, you knew it was going to be hard to run the ball against Georgia. That's not rocket science. I said all week last week Dart needed to steal 50 yards rushing. He ended with 50. I know the running game didn't go off, but they gave Dart enough protection for the receivers to get up and down the field. And I think that, you can't overlook the offensive line effort in that game because I think that was a super key.
Yeah, and look, big kudos to those guys. They've taken a lot of criticism this year. It's been a little bit of a revolving door with some injuries. We had some guys that we thought that had played a lot of snaps for us that have not been available because of injuries. We've had to move and shuffle some guys around. So John Garrison, our offensive line coach, has done a great job of moving those guys around, getting them in good spots. We've got some continuity now of who's playing where. And I think Lane said it too, we only had one sack, and that was Jackson's fault, according to Lane. So, I think they protected Jackson. We were able to run the ball just enough to try to, keep, I think Mintzy, you and I talked before the game, Jackson's ability to run the ball on design runs and when the pocket breaks down is what's going to be key. And you saw that in the second half. I think he had 2 or 3 long runs there in the second half to keep us moving the ball down the field. So, that was true to form. But, yeah, the offensive line, after, a lot of criticism, did a great job of performing at a high level.
All right, I want to talk about the atmosphere in the stadium because you played at Ole Miss in the mid-'90s. You're a lifelong Ole Miss guy. I can't believe what they've done for that stadium atmosphere in the last, 5 years. I mean, Kirby Smart in the postgame talking about how his players will never forget playing in an atmosphere like that. I mean, everybody knew it was going to rain. It never downpoured, and everybody was prepared for it. That stadium was just rocking. I remember I used to always have problems in the Ole Miss Stadium back in the day where I'd be around old men that would tell me to sit down, and that was never going to work for me. All that's over. The place is just rocking, packed. Whatever the speaker system is, it's just unreal. You got the flyover before the game, the fireworks, the light show. I mean, Ole Miss, it's big-time SEC atmosphere now. I mean, we're going toe-to-toe with anybody, and that hadn't always been the case. And I can't overstate enough how good of a job the marketing and the athletic department has done with that. I mean, that atmosphere in the rain was just crazy. I feel like I still feel it in me 3 days later.
Well, yeah, look, you said it all, Mintzy. I mean, our Keith Carter, our athletic department, they deserve all the credit for that. Great. Coordinate, people don't realize how much coordination goes into the music and the presentations and the video board and the flyover and the team entrance and all the things that you got to do. You got to pay bills. You got to give sponsors time, that are sponsoring, in game. And so there's so much coordination that goes into that. And sometimes those things can end up, causing a dead atmosphere, and to your point, that I don't think, from where I was sitting, I didn't see people really sit down much at all. They were on their feet the whole time. I think whoever's playing the music is spot on. I love Dancing Queen.
Yeah, that was crazy. The Dancing Queen was that was really fun.
Hear ABBA, in game like that. But Dancing Queen was phenomenal, and that was a great ad there, and then the band, and again, just great coordination. And look, you have to have those home field advantages when you get here late in November. I was worried about the weather, but I felt like our fans were going to show up anyway. They did. Didn't keep anybody away. And, hearing Kirby's comments afterwards really brought a smile to my face. Like, that's the type of environment that we need to have. And when we go on the road, we experience it at other places. And it's great now that Vaught Hemingway is starting to get known as a really tough place to play. I mean, you look at Lane's record the last 4 years at home, it's pretty phenomenal. I think
he's 2 losses. It was the Kentucky loss and the Egg Bowl in 2022.
Yeah, I mean we've played really, really well at home, and I think our fans are a big part of that.
No doubt. Well, I want to get into some stuff over the weekend, and we got an announcement. So thank you for coming by the Barstool show. I thought the turnout was amazing. I mean, like I said, it was raining, but we had a massive turnout. Dave Portnoy said that Ole Miss was the best, Oxford and Ole Miss was the best campus in college town he'd ever been to. I love seeing him, talking to Brandon Walker about why he has an inferiority complex because he saw how nice Oxford was. I hosted Dave. We went at a big dinner at City Grocery Friday. He did a pizza review at Funky's that went just crazy. I'm 41 years old and I'm crowd surfing.
Has he announced the pizza review yet?
Well, I mean, I don't know if he's announced it, but I just did. Whatever.
Good. I was curious.
No, it's coming out, but
yeah,
that was really fun. Went to Funky's. The library was insane for Pup Punk. I mean, I never thought I'd be singing backup vocals on Mr. Brightside before. I had the walls shaking with the hottie toddy. I'd jump in the crowd at 4. All my friends are blowing me up like 20 years later. Like, is this real? You're 41 years old and you're crowd surfing at the library. Like, what's happening? The Barstool show, though, great turnout. Like, great.
Yeah.
It was 2 hours before the game. I thought we had thousands of people there. I personally was doing the intro and, had a moment where I was just overwhelmed doing the intro that I videoed and got a picture where, there's 2,000 fans yelling my name. I was just like, this is just insane with my journey with Oxford. But I want to also mention the Grove Collective and Dave. You got to hang out and meet Dave. We took a big picture, the big check. Barstool and the Grove Collective raised $40K from selling brick watches last year. Boys, it's time for an announcement because we got to pay for this roster next year. And if y'all enjoy seeing Princely and Perkins and these guys being holy terrors off the edge, and y'all want to keep this going, we got to sell some more damn watches. So the Brick Watch Grove Collective partnership is back. Same deal. It's going to be 1,000 each to the Grove Collective and 1,000 to Dave. We sold 35 to 40 last time. We're running it back. And there's no better time to open your wallets, Ole Miss fans, than right now. Because if you enjoyed what happened this weekend, we got to keep raising this money to keep this roster up top. And we're very lucky to have the support of Dave Portnoy. I know you love that with the collective and the brand and everything you're trying to build. So same deal. DM me, brickwatchcompany.com. We'll get it all figured out. But it's 1,000 to the Grove Collective, and you get 1,000 for a Brick Watch. So you get to wear a sweet watch. You're supporting the collective, and you get something for your donation. So I'm pumped.
Yeah, now, Mintzy, I really appreciate you making that happen. These are the type of partnerships that really separate us from the herd, so to speak, on the NIL landscape. Is, Dave's got a tremendous following, Barstool as well. And, anytime you can partner with somebody that demands that type of attention and do it with a unique, product like a brick watch. And, again, that's just speaks to the creativity that we all have and how we continue to be competitive on this national landscape of NIL. And, like I've always said, no idea is a bad idea. No partnership's a bad partnership. We have to just kind of continually, create opportunities. As Lane says, we got to create our own box here and think outside of that. And, this is a great example of that. It was great seeing, the whole crew there and getting to spend some time with Dave and, really appreciative for him for, supporting us. And it was great. I actually enjoyed meeting Brandon Walker.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody, it's always good to meet the villain, and we've got some mutual friends, so I enjoyed visiting with him a little bit. But yeah, I thought it was a great setting, and you guys did a great job, and we're going to continue we'll promote this partnership and all that you do for us, Mintzy. But those are the things that we have to do, quite frankly, to stay relevant and to stay competitive.
I want to ask, I got a couple of NIL questions before I get out of here. So this landscape NIL, it's been like the Wild West. Now you've actually been in Congress talking about it. Is the government going to get involved? What's the future here? Because I feel like, is there going to be some regulations coming? What's going on here?
Yeah, I think now that the election's over, there was nothing that was going to happen, prior leading up to the election. Now that the election's over and there'll be a new Congress that gets seated here in January, I think they'll wade back in a little bit. I think Ted Cruz is him and Cory Booker are the ones that are taking a lot of the lead on this. I really think Congress, should stay out of the majority of NIL. I think where they can weigh in and add some meaningful context and some support is in two areas. It's Title IX and
Okay.
employment. Really, I think those are two federal issues, obviously, in the employment status of these athletes, and then the gender equity Title IX piece. I think those are the two areas where Congress could feasibly add some support and some clarification. The House settlement's going to happen. It's not going to address either of those two issues. Those two issues are still going to hang out there, and schools and collectives and athletes are going to have to navigate around all that. So, maybe Congress comes in and helps us figure that out. We have our own opinions about how to apply Title IX in a fair way, and also to deal with the employment piece of this as well. I won't bore you with all that, but I do think that the settlement, the post NIL environment, once we get the settlement done next year, will be really fascinating to watch how all this gets regulated, how the rev share will change college athletics. I think one of the things that we're seeing now and that we'll continue to see is incredible parity, and because of talent distribution and the ability for athletes to be able to move around. Let's talk about football, for example. I just don't see the days of going 15 and 16 and 0 anymore. I think there's too much talent to do that. I think you're going to see much more of what happens in the NFL, where your really elite teams lose 3, 4, 5 games a year. An elite team is 14 and 4 going into the playoffs. Some of Tom Brady's best teams lost 3, 4, 5 games, a year. And I think that's where we're headed in college football. I just don't see the distance between the great teams and the good teams is not as great anymore. It's much tighter. Look at Vanderbilt this year.
South Carolina's been like that too.
South Carolina. I mean, your elite teams are going to be 10 and 2, 11 and 2, 12. That's what I think is going to happen in college football. You saw it in basketball last year, where there was a tremendous parity. A lot of teams that weren't highly ranked teams making it to the Final Four, and so I think that's going to be a direct correlation with NIL and the ability to talent to be dispersed more evenly. So it's going to be fascinating. I know here at the Grove Collective and at Ole Miss, we've got a great administration that we're working with Glenn Boyce and Keith Carter and our organization. We're going to be nimble. We're making plans for all sorts of contingencies. We're not going to get caught flat-footed on this thing, and I think that's a real important piece of this. Not everybody, a lot of people are kind of paralyzed, like what's going to happen with the settlement? What's that going to mean? Well, you kind of read and react like you do in anything in life, and that's what we're doing. But it's going to be fascinating to watch it develop over here for the next 6 months, and Congress may intervene at that time in those areas that we talked about.
How much fun! I know y'all are in the raising money game. I mean, so much pressure on the results because it's like everybody went all in this year with the playoff thing. It's a lot easier to make those fundraising phone calls after that game on Saturday, I would think.
Yeah, I'll give you 2 quick stories. The Sunday after the LSU game was my kids' fall break, and we were actually trying to run over to the beach for a couple of days to enjoy a little time off. And because the LSU game ended the way it did, I did not have an enjoyable fall break. It was not a fun week after that. These 3 days after the Georgia game have been much more enjoyable. Our fans have really stepped up. We've had a ton of memberships, new donations that have come in the last 48 hours since Saturday night. So our fans are definitely kind of re-energized, and it has been fun to see a lot of the text messages and talk to a lot of the people that helped put all this together, and see that affirmation that we talked to about on the beginning of this, Mintzy. And it's going to be a good week. We got our Tad Pad throwback game tonight.
Nice.
With the men's basketball team. We got both our men's and women's teams are ranked in the top 25 in basketball. So basketball's off to a great start. And then, we've got an open week in football to kind of let us heal up a little bit, watch everybody else beat the crap out of each other this weekend. So I'm looking forward to having a weekend off. It's kind of hard to enjoy the games, like you said, because you got so much riding on these things. But it's certainly been a good week so far, and we're going to continue the momentum. We got a bunch of really neat things coming up, like the Brick Watch promotion and some other things for our fans. So we're going to be selling parts of the goalpost.
Oh,
we
nice.
actually found the goalpost on the square, so we're going to be chopping up the goalpost and selling those online to our fans, which will be really neat. So more to come on that. But yeah, it's certainly been a fun 48 hours for sure.
Hell yeah, it has. I want to ask. So you mentioned the parity in the SEC. I think there's a situation where 6 SEC teams in 10-2 here, and like you look at the Ole Miss front, still got 2 tough games. Can't ever discount anything, obviously, in this league, especially going on the road to the Swamp. And DJ Lagway,
Right.
the Florida quarterback, they got LSU at 2:30 Saturday, and then Ole Miss behind it. He warmed up against Texas, didn't play. I don't know what to believe on his hamstring injury, but there's a chance. They need 2 wins in the next 3 to make a bowl, so there's a chance he's back for that game in the Swamp. But you got like Tennessee and Georgia this week. Georgia's got to win or they're out of the playoffs. Tennessee with only 1 loss. Bama has 2 losses. A&M 2 losses. Texas 1 loss. I mean, this thing, I really think there's a shot you could have 6 teams at 10-2, and it could just be crazy.
Yeah, really, I actually yesterday was looking at the tie-breaking scenario for the SEC, which I think there's 6 tiers of tie breaks, like when they have these things, and I mean, you could legitimately see 5 teams tied for second place with 2 losses in the conference, and you start reading through these tiers, you may get to tier 5 or 6 before you can determine who's going to Atlanta to play Texas or whoever, or A&M or whoever it is. In the conference championship, and then there's the whole debate about, do you really want to go play in the conference championship?
Yeah,
Like is that a blessing or is that a curse? Part of you says, look, yeah, we want to go win the SEC. That'd be a great moment to go win.
and
the
you
SEC.
get a bye. You get a bye if you win.
You get a bye. You're probably the first number 1 seed in the country, so you get a favorable seeding. But the flip side of that, you also got to play another game against a really good team and get beat up again. And have to prepare for a game where otherwise you'd get a double bye by not having to play in it. So, you could argue it both ways. Again, I hope those are conversations that we're all contingencies that we're all talking about. We've got to take care of Florida and Mississippi State. Florida is a tough place to play, the Swamp. I know for a fact I played down there and got my tail kicked, so I know how hard it is to win in Florida. And then you got a rivalry game against Mississippi State, which it'll be their Super Bowl. They'll give us everything they got in that Egg Bowl game on that Friday after Thanksgiving. So we got a lot to do. We don't really need to worry about, do we want Georgia to beat Tennessee and do we want Texas to beat A&M and all that? Look, let's just win our 2 ball games. There's going to be plenty of carnage to go back and forth these next 3 weeks. And, if we take care of our business, we're going to be right there in the middle of this thing. And it'll be a fun time. And it'll again, get us to a point that we started planning for 2 years ago.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's kind of one of those things, if you look back on it now, you'd rather have 2 losses with the Georgia win than 2 losses with the Kentucky win and losing to Georgia for your resume. It's not even close. That win over Georgia, especially how dominant it was, is the best win in college football this year, period, by any team. And and also it's the old thing, if you're going to lose, you want to do it in September, not November. So I kind of feel like that cancels out. I mean, obviously the Kentucky loss was terrible, as was the LSU one. The one tie-breaking scenario to watch for is we need LSU to lose again, because they've got 2 SEC losses, and they have the tiebreaker over Ole Miss because they head-to-head. They're at Florida, Vandy at home, and Oklahoma at home left. We need a 3rd LSU loss for the SEC tie-breaking situation. That's the key, because you got the head-to-head over Georgia. So I think that's the one if you're an Ole Miss fan.
If they play like they did Saturday night, you'll probably get that.
Yeah, no, I know. In LSU, Florida, you never know in that game. That's one of those crazy rivalry, throw out the record book things.
It's like it's going to be really fascinating to see, these teams that lose and still have games left to play. Like, are they, if they feel like the playoff is not a reality, are they, are you going to have people sitting out? What's going to be the mood of those teams? And, these are the things that we haven't really had to worry about in years past. It didn't happen until bowl games. Now, with the 12-team playoff and so many teams built to try to make that, these last 3 weeks are going to be fascinating. And, again, this is what we asked for in college football. We wanted a bigger playoff. This is what we've gotten. Chaos is going to be the thing that everybody is excited about. And again, you got to kind of embrace it. But to your point, I think we're in a great spot. I think if Georgia wins out, there's no way they're not going to put a 10-2 Georgia team in a favorable seed, and therefore that would put us in a great spot having beat Georgia. I mean, after Georgia went to Texas and beat the mess out of them, there was no doubt that everybody thought Georgia was the best team in the country. Again, it'll be interesting to see how they play against Tennessee this week and how Tennessee does. And, these are all the things that we signed up for when they announced this thing 2 years ago.
Yeah, I feel like it's set up for Texas A&M Thanksgiving night to be a loser, doesn't make the playoff game if A&M beats Auburn. Because Texas can't have 2 losses if everyone has 2 losses because of the Georgia loss, and then like Michigan and Oklahoma ended up sucking, so they don't have good wins. Like the Ole Miss side of it, the at South Carolina win has aged unbelievably well. That's a huge road win. And then you got the Georgia win at home. So you got the best win of the season in Georgia, but the at South Carolina looks awesome now with the way they're playing. And so you got to feel good about the 2-loss Ole Miss resume just off the strength of those wins. So I'm pumped up. Once again, follow at Grove Collective, NIL on Twitter, at Grove Collective on Instagram. Love Walker, love Barstool's partnership with the Grove Collective. Shout out Dave Portnoy for making it all happen. And, man, what a weekend in Oxford. Thank you for, letting me be part of it. And I'll see you. I'm coming for the Egg Bowl. So we'll get to kick at Egg Bowl.
Awesome. Mintzy, hey, I appreciate all you do for Ole Miss, man. You're a great Rebel. We appreciate you, buddy. And we'll see you in the Grove post-Thanksgiving at the Egg Bowl, buddy. Thanks for everything.
Yep, DM me. We're going to sling some more brick watches, as I said. 1,000 to the Grove Collective, NIL, 1,000 to Dave. So it's $1,000. We got to pay for this roster next year, boys, and keep this rolling. Hotty toddy. Thanks, Walker. Walker Jones, the Grove Collective. We're going to let Tyler Moody come in here and join us here in a second. So much to get into over the weekend, and I hadn't even mentioned yet, boys, this gambling heater is one of the damnedest things I've ever been on. I mean, this is the best college football season I've had since 2017. I'm freaking cooking. And last week, I made a big stir on Twitter when I put 286 to win 10K on Ole Miss to win the national title at 35-1 on DraftKings. And I said, who's coming with me? Because if Ole Miss beats Georgia, they're going to be 12-1 on Sunday. Well, 12-1 would have been if Ole Miss had won a close game. They kicked the crap out of Georgia. Now they're 10-1. And those who came with me were going on a journey. I had Ole Miss +2 against Georgia. I slammed under 54.5. And I even did a parlay that was Ole Miss money line, moved the under to 48.5, and Jackson Dart over 49.5 rush yards, and he ended with 50. Unbelievable. Hit it all, 21-1. Just demolished that game completely. And then NFL Sunday, I ended up going like 8-1 on Sunday. Hit a money line parlay with the Saints, the Arizona Cardinals, and the Steelers at 10-1. It's just crazy. I lost the over last night, Miami, LA Rams, but who cares? Whatever. Just absolutely cooking them. Have been all year. I'm the hottest football gambler in this company. It's not even close. So we're going to go into the lab today, start looking ahead to next week and get fired up because we got to keep this rolling. I'm back here. I was on the road traveling like crazy the last 4 weeks doing the Saints Thursday night, meeting Sean Payton, and the Savannah Quarterbacks Club speaking gig was awesome last week. We got a ton of run out of that. Thank you to them for having me. So I'm going to stay here this weekend and chill. I'm debating playing the World Series of Poker Chicago 1700 main event on Friday. Maybe this gambling sports heater can go toward the poker table, but going to watch some football. And then next weekend, I'm excited. I'm going back to Austin, Texas for the first time in a year and a half. I'm going to play the $1,200 $1 million poker tournament at the Lodge Poker Club in Round Rock next Friday. And then I think I'm going to go to Kentucky, Texas, and Austin next Saturday and see a bunch of my people in Austin. So, and then Egg Bowl Thanksgiving. So a bunch of fun stuff. Look ahead here. Barstool rolling as always. Tyler Moody joined us now. What's up, Moody? How are you?
Hey, yo, what's up, brother? How we doing?
Man, you know how I'm doing. I walked in the office pumped up. I can still feel the energy from the stadium in me 3 days later. That Oxford weekend, like I said, man, I've been going to Ole Miss for 25 years. That was the most fun I've ever had. Ever. Number one. More than 2014 Bama when I was back in school. And just the full circle of it, the Barstool takeover, the Pup Punk Library show. Shout out to PFT and Roan and Caroline and Robbie and Frankie Borelli for having me. I can't believe, it was like a, that was like a movie scene. I'm up there singing Mr. Brightside and stay. I don't know, man. I just can't. can't believe all this is like even real life, to be honest.
Yeah, no, it looked like a great time. I got a chance to watch some of the college football show on Saturday. It looked like you were living your dream up there, bro. I'm very happy for you, happy for your Rebels. And I'm still holding an Ole Miss national championship ticket from the beginning of the year. So
You got 20-1, right?
I'm cheering for the Rebels. Yeah, I got it at 20-1. So I'm still cheering for the Rebels as well. Things look very bleak for a while, but suddenly there is some hope.
Yeah, well, the spot to get in, I said it last week, man, that 35-1 was the spot to get in because they were only a 2-point underdog against Georgia. And it was like, if they win this game, you got the 35-1 flyer. And luckily, I mean, for me, y'all know I get shamed because I'm like a 50 a unit player all the time. But 285 to win 10K is a big bet for me. I mean, I'm stoked to have that sweat the rest of the way. They were 14-1 preseason, and now you got it all in front of you at 35-1. I mean, I can't have a possible better situation than that. And as always, DraftKings our partners. Some NFL stuff. The Bears firing OC Shane Waldron today. Do you put that on his play calling, or do you just think Caleb Williams looks like crap?
I think it's a little bit of all of it, right? One thing, Caleb Williams, he just holds the ball way too long. So I think some of it's probably scheme and the fact that the receivers aren't open enough. Like, we noticed the other day he was just throwing quick hitters to Keenan Allen in the early part of the game, and then whenever they got behind and they needed to start trying to force stuff downfield, they really didn't have a whole lot of open receivers downfield, and he was not willing to take the shots at certain times during the game. So I think it's a little bit on both. I do think the Bears had to make a regime change somewhere to try and figure this thing out because you invested so much in this offense, in this quarterback, and for you to feel like you're going backwards over the last couple of weeks versus where you were even, after week 6, week 7, there had to be some kind of change. But I do think some of this is on Caleb Williams. And I was hypercritical that I didn't think Caleb Williams was the best quarterback in this draft, that I don't really think Caleb Williams is going to be a great NFL quarterback. My initial instincts are starting to possibly prove true. There's still a long ways to go with this thing because you can see it at times. He has flashes. There are glimpses of a guy that could be, a quarterback that could lead your franchise. But I don't know. Definitely hasn't looked good the last couple of weeks.
I'm curious, like playing long-term on it, I wouldn't be shocked. Cliff Kingsbury was his OC at USC. We've seen what he's doing. Jaden Daniels is the OC in Washington. I could see Cliff Kingsbury next head coach of the Bears to try to save Caleb Williams. Just with them already having that relationship and what he's doing for the Commanders, I feel like that there's a vibe where that could be kind of an obvious move maybe not for this year, obviously, but for 2025.
Yeah, I can see it. Kingsbury has to get a very good defensive coordinator, though. Somebody that can really manage the defense. Because I don't think Cliff Kingsbury is a head coach. I don't think he's a great head coach. He's a great offensive coordinator. I still don't believe in him so much as a head coach. But he's doing a heck of a job right now with Kyler. They're 5-1 in their last 6. They have 10 they're cooking.
Oh, yeah. Well, Kingsbury. Arizona's cooking. Kingsbury's the OC for Jaden Daniels.
Jaden Daniels. My bad.
He used to be the Arizona coach, so I get the confusion.
Yeah.
Some other NFL stuff I want to mention. Look, everybody hammered me on Twitter when I was on the Saints +4 this week. But, boys, when the Saints and the Atlanta Falcons play, you throw out the freaking record books. It doesn't matter. Those games are always down to the wire no matter what. The players hated Dennis Allen. They like Rizzi, the new interim. The Saints played hard. 2017 big win. Do I think the Saints are going anywhere? Absolutely freaking not. They're 3-7. However, look, I don't care if they win another game. Beating Atlanta like that, that's all I care about. I hate the freaking Atlanta Falcons. It's the dirty South rivalry. And Sunday brought up just such a smile to my face seeing that in New Orleans.
Yeah, no, we were both on the Saints this week. It's rivalry games, man. It means so much more, and just trying to beat the Saints in that spot. I felt like the energy was going to be there. We talked about this. Getting rid of Dennis Allen was going to be such a big thing for the Saints. It was going to revive them. From an effort standpoint. And we saw elite effort on both sides of the football. I thought the defense played as good as we've seen recently, Vince.
Yeah, well, it's just a new energy, man. The interim energy. Like I said, I heard there was like a player who they hated Dennis Allen, so now they're refreshed and playing hard. Like I said, I don't think the injuries are too much. I mean, they're 3-7. They're 3 back from Atlanta and 1 back from Tampa. They're like 60-1 to win the NFC South right now. I mean, I saw that, and I was like, I'm not saying that's a play, but I don't know. I may put 50 to win $3,000 on it just in case they win for the interim. But regardless, pumped about the Saints. Other football stuff, a lot of stuff happened. We got to touch on what the hell happened in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, Saturday night. I mean, I'm talking getting skull dragged by Alabama. I mean, you got your LSU Bama, huge rivalry. It was a rainy night. I get that. But Jalen Milroe, 12 for 185. LSU's proven they can't stop mobile quarterbacks. He has like 400 yards rushing in the last 2 years against LSU. And LSU's off a bye. And that game meaning everything to their playoffs. I mean, that was one of the most embarrassing efforts I've ever seen. It was 42-6, and LSU scored with 11 seconds left to make it 42-13. On your home field, in Death Valley on Saturday night. Man, I can't imagine what Baton Rouge is like that this week after that, because that was wretched effort. And they should be ashamed of themselves.
Yeah, opening up Twitter, it was just shame after shame post from Tiger fans, just very upset with the way things turned out, disappointed. I could not believe that effort. I thought LSU would at least show up and make it a game. For them to get absolutely beat.
My dumbass took them.
Me too. I was on LSU as well. But I just couldn't believe that was the effort that they got. They got beat in every facet of the game. I mean, they were out-coached. They were outplayed. There was more effort on the Alabama side. It was a true beatdown in every sense of the word. And for that to happen in Baton Rouge, night game, you never see that. I don't know the last time LSU got beat down like that at night in Baton Rouge. I
mean, it was bad. And I watched some of the game at City Grocery after the Ole Miss game. The key moment, it was 21-6, and LSU was driving, and Nussmeier threw a pick in the end zone late second quarter. And if they score there and make it 21-13, I'm not saying they're going to win, but it would have been competitive, and that was the moment the game was over. That was it. I mean, they just got their ass beat in the second half. And all of a sudden, Alabama, everybody trying to act like they were dead. 2-loss Bama. They've already got the hard part of their schedule behind them. They've got at Oklahoma, who sucks. They got Auburn at home. They should be fine in that. I mean, Bama's headed for 10-2 in the playoffs, and right now they're like 10-1. I mean, their defense seems like it's improved a lot, and Milroe's dual threat running. I don't know. You don't want to count the Tide out. They seem like I don't know if you call them a dark horse because they're Alabama, but they seem like a team you don't want to mess with right now.
And they're a team you definitely don't want to play coming in. They're going to be rolling in hot. And Jaden, and here's the thing with Milroe, he's just talented. He's one of those dudes that's a gamer, right? Like you feel like in a big spot you are comfortable with him as your quarterback because of his ability to use his legs. He'll make the tough throw, the contested throw. He's one of those guys that you're confident with going into big games. And I just wouldn't want to play Alabama right now.
Yeah, now I was wondering, if you had to rank. I'm trying to think out loud here. When you look at this SEC situation, you've got 1-loss Texas, 2-loss A&M, 2-loss Bama, 1-loss Tennessee, playing at 2-loss Georgia on Saturday. So Georgia is in a total. Georgia has Tennessee and Georgia Tech left. They've got to win both. If they go 10-2, they're in the playoffs, but they lose either, they're out. Tennessee can lose. I think Tennessee can lose this Georgia game and still get into 10-2. But the scenario I was bringing up to Walker, Tennessee 10-2, Georgia 10-2, Bama 10-2. A&M beats Texas. A&M and Texas both 10-2, and Ole Miss 10-2. Could definitely happen. Very easily could happen. Could have 6 teams 10-2 here.
It could happen. I don't necessarily know that A&M is going to beat Texas. I think Texas is the more complete football team.
I do too. If the game was in Austin, definitely. But it's just that night game in College Station. Yeah. Who the hell knows? In that atmosphere on Thanksgiving night. But, man, and then looking around the rest of college football, Indiana pulled one out against Michigan, but, man, undefeated Indiana at Ohio State Saturday. one of the most fascinating football games ever when you look at like what Indiana's been able to do as a surprise team. Indiana can lose this game as long as they don't lose like 49-3, 11-1. Indiana's going to make the playoff. And so you look at the Big Ten. I mean, Ohio State, Oregon, Indiana, and Penn State all look good for a playoff spot. We just talked about the SEC situation. Big 12 is going to get one, whether it be Colorado's got a path to the Big 12 title game, BYU looking good as well. The winner of the Big 12 is going to get in. ACC is only going to get one. Now that Clemson has, 2 losses, Miami had a bad loss to Georgia Tech. Whoever wins the ACC, Miami, SMU, or Clemson's getting in, but I think that's it. I think it's a one-loss league. I don't think any, so ACC is going to be one bid. Big 12 is going to be one bid. Probably Boise, but the best G5 team gets one. And so all the rest of the wild cards are going to be Big 10 and SEC. And it's just fascinating to see how that breaks down in the 12-team playoff. But the Ole Miss side of it's the best. I mean, you got a bye week at Florida, which definitely could be tough if Lagway's back. I mean, Swamp's not easy. And then a home Egg Bowl. So they're really sitting in just an awesome spot because you've got Georgia and Tennessee still playing each other, Texas A&M still playing each other. These other teams are going to lose. And if Ole Miss just wins these next two, 10-2, they're going to move up. I expect Ole Miss to be like number 11 in the playoff rankings released tonight, and I'm just hoping they can sneak up to 8 to get a home playoff game. That's my hope.
No, I think you're right. I think it's definitely a possibility. Seeing who comes out of the ACC will be fascinating. Is this the most exciting college football season that you can think of in recent memory because you have so many teams that have a chance to get in, and this obviously the new format opening the door for that?
Yeah, it reminds me of the 07 season, but then you only had, a regular BCS national title game. It was the year it was LSU, Ohio State, because that was the year everybody was losing. I mean, LSU lost 2 games. They lost in overtime at home to Arkansas the last game of the season and still somehow got in the national championship game because West Virginia lost as like a 28-point favorite to Pitt, and Missouri lost to Kansas in the Big 12 title game. But that's what this year reminds me of. Like, you can make a case for so many teams. Oregon's number 1, and I understand why they're number 1 because the Ohio State win was so big, and then they've been dominant since. So, they're looking at playing probably Ohio State, or the winner of Ohio State-Indiana is going to play Oregon in the Big Ten championship game, basically is what's coming on that front, and that'll be awesome to see in Indianapolis. And, yeah, man, it's just a super exciting season and just so much going on. A lot to love. But shout out Walker Jones, the Ole Miss Grove Collective, and Moody. I want to remind everyone, 1:30 today, Stool Streams, the Barstool Quarterback Challenge. I don't know if you saw this, Moody. Tate's running it. It's me, Mark Titus, who played quarterback in high school, Stephen Shea, Big Cat, and 1 or 2 more. I'm 100. Tate put out odds of 150 to 1 to win the Quarterback Challenge. I feel like that's probably, I think I should be like 300. I mean, I can't throw a football.
Can we actually bet on that, though?
I don't know that we can actually bet on it. Titus got to be the favorite. He played quarterback in high school. But
yeah, I would think so. But I feel like Big Cat's a gamer, though, right? Does he not show up for these kind of things? Like,
no, he always
I get the
shows
sense
up.
that, yeah, I feel like he's a gamer. I wouldn't count him out.
No, I wouldn't either. But either way, join us at 1:30 on Stool Streams for that. And then, as always, Barstool rolling, mostly sports, the Yak. Ton of fun stuff going on this week. Oh, also, tomorrow night, Laugh Factory, Barstool Comedy Night. Stu Feiner and a bunch of people are going to be there. I will be there. Come join us tomorrow night at the Laugh Factory in Chicago for Barstool Comedy Night. I've kind of gotten involved with that the last few months and just really enjoyed it. I'm not doing any stand-up tomorrow, but I'll be there. Come join us, though. Laugh Factory, Wednesday night, 8 o'clock for Barstool Comedy Night. And we're going to get out of here. Great week to be alive, boys. Let's have a day. Shout out Walker Jones, Grove Collective. Brick Watch Partnership is back. DM me, Ole Miss fans, if you want Brick Watch, donate 1,000 to the Grove Collective and 1,000 to Dave. Get you a sweet watch. We got to build this roster for next year. Hell yeah, damn right. Hotty toddy.